What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to introduce you to a fight that took place July 12, 1986 at the Omni Coliseum in Atlanta, Georgia. This was perhaps the greatest cruiserweight championship bout that has ever existed. It took place between Evander the Real Deal Holyfield, who was a 1984 Olympic bronze medalist, and Dwight Muhammad Qawi, better known as the Camden Buzzsaw. Now, Dwight Muhammad Qawi, better known as Dwight Braxton, Camden Buzzsaw, was born January 5, 1953 in Baltimore, Maryland. He arrived at Camden, New Jersey. At that point, he would spend some time in Galway State Prison, and he was the chief sparring partner for James Scott. He stood 5 foot 6.5 and weighed 172 to 232 pounds. He had a 71-inch reach. He was managed by Wesley Mazel. Now, Qawi had a fighting record of 41-11-1 with 25 by the knockout rule. He was very powerful, strong like a locomotive, very aggressive. And that would earn him the WBC Light Heavyweight Championship strap, WBA Cruiserweight Championship strap, and eventually the WBC Continental America's Cruiserweight Championship strap. Now, he would win that WBC Light Heavyweight Championship strap. 1980, he would defeat Matthew Saad Muhammad, and that was some fight. I was fortunately able to attend that fight. It was an outstanding fight between Matthew Saad Muhammad and Dwight Muhammad Qawi. And Qawi would lift the WBC Light Heavyweight Championship strap from Muhammad Qawi, Matthew Saad Muhammad. Now, Qawi would eventually lose that strap to Michael Spinks in a unification bout. And Qawi was guaranteed a rematch, but he couldn't make that rematch because of an injury. So he would move up to the cruiserweight division. They called it the junior heavyweight division at that time. Now, Qawi would face fighters such as Leroy Murphy, Mike Rossman, Jerry Martin, Eddie Davis, Matthew Saad Muhammad, Ricky Parkey, Michael Spinks. That was for the WBC, WBA, and he had lost his WBC version of that particular strap. Now, after he lost to Spinks, he pulled out of a rematch clause in 1983. And like I said, he moved up to the cruiserweight division. At that time, they called it the junior heavyweight division. And he would win that strap, the WBA Cruiserweight Championship belt. But in the wings, we had an up-and-coming light heavyweight, a phenomenon. Came out of the 1984 Olympic Games. His name was Evander the Real Deal Holyfield. Now, Holyfield was born October 19th, 1962, Alkmaar, Alabama. He eventually would move to Atlanta. That would become his home. Now, after the 1984 Olympic Games, he was signed with Main Events and joined Lou Duva, Georgie Benton, and he had a manager by the name of Sanders. Now, he stood 6 foot 2.5 weighed 176 to 202 pounds. He had a 77.5-inch reach. Ken Sanders used to own a car dealership, but he was a very good negotiator and very good with handling money. And he thought it would be a good idea to bring him along to handle Evander Holyfield's affairs. Holyfield will eventually be trained by Ronnie Shields and Don Turner, But at this point in his career, he had sweet Georgie Benton, a Philadelphia fighter who was ranked #1 for 4 years. He would eventually become a trainer for Smoking Joe Frazier. He would join the Main Events training team, and he would handle the 1984 Olympic team that came over to Main Events. Fighters such as Mark Breland out of New York. He was a 6-time Golden Glove winner, a Nationals, Olympic Festival, and a gold medalist in the 1984 Olympic Games. Purnell Sweet Pea Whitaker, All-American, National Amateur Champion. He himself would be a gold medalist in the 1984 Olympic Games. They were signed along with Evander Holyfield with Main Events. They would become a team as a professional. Now, Evander Holyfield would train rigorously because he wanted to be world champion. He was 21 years of age at that time when he turned professional. And at the age of 23, he would get his opportunity. After storming through the light heavyweight and cruiserweight division, he would get a shot at his 15th professional fight with the white Muhammad Qawi. And his goal was to eventually unify the cruiserweight division. Now, he would face fighters such as Ricky Parkey, May 15th, 1987. After he would defeat the white Braxton Muhammad Qawi, he would own the WBA and the IBF championship. He fought in Las Vegas, Nevada. He would fight Carlos Sugar de Leon, WBC, WBA, and the IBF. I was at that fight at Atlantic City. Beautiful knockout by Evander the Real Deal Holyfield. Now, eventually, Holyfield would move up to the heavyweight division. He would take on fighters such as Pinklin Thomas. And that showed the strength of Evander Holyfield. He would eventually face Michael Dynamite Dokes. Michael Dokes, fantastic fighter. He would become the WBA heavyweight champion when he defeated Hercules, Mike Weaver, WBA heavyweight champion of the world. And Michael Dokes would become the heavyweight champion of the world, but he would lose that title to Jerry Corsia, South Africa, WBA heavyweight champion. Incredible how these belts would switch. Michael Dokes was a formidable opponent for Evander the Real Deal Holyfield. It was a true test. I was at that fight. It was an outstanding 10th round knockout by Evander Holyfield. He was hurt himself, but he showed the true grit of a heavyweight champion in the making. And that would prepare him for the heavyweight champion of the world, James Buster Douglas. Buster Douglas was the undisputed heavyweight champion when he would knock out Iron Mike Tyson, 1990, February 10th. It would be one of the most upsetting fights in the entire history of the game, especially in the heavyweight division. So Holyfield would face James Buster Douglas. And after 2 quick rounds, Buster Douglas would make a very basic mistake. You never throw an uppercut from the outside, especially with a counterpuncher. And Holyfield did exactly what he was supposed to do. He timed the foot position of Buster Douglas. Douglas had nothing else to throw but an uppercut. He took a quick step back, came back with a beautiful, beautiful straight right hand. That's what you're taught, hours and hours and hours, from old school trainers like Georgie Benton, Henry Armstrong, was a master of reading your foot movement. James Buddy McGirt learned from Joey Giardello. These are scientific moves that are not done because training is done with pads. And you're never looking down when you're hitting pads. It's a complete different school. Anyway, Evander Holyfield becomes the brand new heavyweight champion of the world, undisputed. Now, he would eventually fight fighters such as Michael Moore. He would win or lose his title. John Ruiz, win or lose his title. Hasim Rotman. Rotman would wind up bowing out with a swollen eye, size of a basketball. Riddick Big Daddy Bowe. That would be his first loss. And he would eventually get his title back. 2 great wars. And eventually a third one, Holyfield would be stopped. But getting back to the Qawi and Evander Holyfield fight, Evander Holyfield actually had 11-0. He was 23 years of age at the time. He was 6 foot 2.5 inches. The white Qawi was 26-2. He had 1 draw, 189 unbelievable pounds. He was 33 years of age. And this was some war. It was in Atlanta. And Holyfield looked like he took off more than he can chew. From the opening bell, you can see the white Muhammad Qawi putting it to Holyfield, showing him old school tricks, pretending that he's hurt and he wasn't. Have Holyfield constantly throwing combinations. Holyfield constantly having to move around. The dude was wanting him to step around Qawi, but that wouldn't work because of the dimension. As you can look at Qawi trying to jab at Holyfield in the left eye. Very, very important technique. And the reason why that's important, because when you jab him in the left eye, you jab him in the left part of his nostrils, he has no choice but to start breathing very heavy because you're clotting the blood vessels in his nose, causing swelling in the eye. And now you open up room for your straight right hand because he can't see your right hand coming. This takes about 2 to 3 rounds from a moving target like Evander Holyfield. That's why they needed him to turn. But he couldn't turn because of the pressure. But Holyfield's heart was the only thing that kept him in a fight. And after 15 grueling rounds, Evander Holyfield would become the brand new WBA junior heavyweight champion of the world. He was the first Olympian to get a title in the 1984 games. Fantastic fight between Evander Holyfield and the white Muhammad Qawi. Now I have Evander Holyfield on my top 15 greatest fighters of all times. Absolutely. I have him ahead of Mike Tyson, ahead of Mayweather, ahead of a lot of the fighters today. Because Evander Holyfield was the undisputed cruiserweight, undisputed heavyweight. He won that title 4 times. He was in there with some of the greatest fighters of his time. Fighters like Big George Foreman. George Foreman was his first title defense. I was at that fight in Atlantic City. Amazing fight. Big George Foreman and Evander Holyfield. Holyfield was in there with Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes, one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all times. Fascinating fighter was Larry Holmes. 2 legends Evander Holyfield would defeat. A salute to Evander Holyfield and Dwight Muhammad Qawi. One of the greatest championship bouts of all times. Thanks for hanging in there with me. This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series, stating all great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Evander Holyfield, real deal. Dwight Muhammad Qawi, the Camden Buzzsaw. Salute.